gorgeous.
Hearing some sick music right now. Oh, the sound of nightmare air, my friends. You know what that means? It's time for another podcast. I'm super excited, and if you're actually watching this, I've been getting a lot of pressure from you guys to actually to throw up the video. So if you're watching this, you have a special treat because you can actually see what the hell goes on. And if you're not watching this, go find it. I'll put it on the YouTube channel. It's on the Art Mann channel on YouTube. But here's what we're doing this week. We're talking all about cars. We're talking to a guy that I don't know if I've ever met anyone that's more likable and has more charisma than this freaking guy. He's amazing. I found this online too before I actually let him speak. Nicknames, and see if you guys can figure it out. Well, you know, I always play this game, dude, but they see it in the description anyway. But nicknames, bearded lady, conehead, and of course, Rut.
Oh my gosh. Is this where I get to say thank you for having me? I'm so excited.
Yes, it's Rutledge Wood, and this is cool as hell. Dude, I'm excited to meet you. The funny thing is, and I want to tell them, the people listening, I want to tell them this too. You said very nice things to me before we were recording, but what I didn't get a chance to get to was, like, because it sounds like you've enjoyed my travels, like living through my travels.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd like to be the president of your fan club. Yes.
No, but you don't understand. I'm a car guy. This background like is fake, obviously, but I'm in my garage. There's a shifter cart right there. Like, I love car stuff. So all the stuff you do, I envy you. Like, I sit there and go, oh my God, he's so lucky.
Cart?
He's at Talladega. Oh my God.
Oh my God. See, that's, and we became buddies because you and I have a mutual friend, I don't remember who now, on Instagram. We both replied to something that they wrote.
Oh yeah, it was Toolsy, Dan O'Toole.
Oh yes, okay. And I made a joke about, like, boy, no one's talking about how great his kitchen is, and you liked it. And I went, wait a second, is that the Art Mann that just replied to me? And I got so pumped, so I sent you a message and just said, man, I'm such a big fan. And you said the same stuff.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to do this justice for them because they have to know.
Please.
Because this says a lot about your personality. So this guy sends me a direct message and he says, he goes, Art, with exclamations. There's no easy way to say this. And I'm going, and then that's the end of that message. And I'm like, uh-oh, where's this going?
Oopsie.
And he goes, and we can swear on my podcast, but I fucking love you. And then the very next one, very Rutledge-like, the very next one, he goes, sorry about the F-bomb, but you deserve it.
I think it said ducking, and Siri must have finally gotten it correct.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, because you work for NBC.
No, you're hilarious. Dude, I've watched so many of your shows, and for us, the highlight of the hotel, like, you know, if you travel a lot for work, the nicest difference between like a Hampton Inn and a Four Seasons is usually thread count and pillows, right? They're all the same. But for us, it was, do they have Art's channel where I can actually watch your show? And so I think because we both have that love of people, and every time that you go out, you find these amazing characters, and that's what I try to do every single weekend when I'm at a racetrack.
Dude, and I know with a lot of my stuff during all these times we're in right now, I try not to even talk about it because I think it's important for people to have a break from talking about it. But I will say this, because I want to talk to you about this one part of it. Are you going through the same thing as me? Because some of my favorite things in this world, smiling faces, crazy drunken events, like, and by the way,
yes,
both of those are hard right now because you have masks on and the events are postponed. So this is killing me. Like, in social interaction, I absolutely love. Of course, I love drunk people because they're fantastic. This is the fastest growing drunken travel podcast on iTunes. But I just love people in general. Like, I enjoy them so much. I enjoy learning about individual people and what their story is. And I feel like you're the same way. Like, when I watch you, there's a sincerity there that I don't know how you don't love this freaking dude. People just love you, don't they?
Well, you're sweet. I've been very lucky that so many people found, I think in the same way that you have, is that if you go out with a genuine interest to want to meet new people every single weekend or every single day you go to work and have fun, you will connect with people on this big scale. So yeah, I think for right now, people like us, it's really hard because it's like someone threw the brakes on the joy and the light that you try to bring to the world and share with other people. And so that's why I love doing podcasts like this, because it gets us a chance to get out there and do that together, but it's for other people.
No, and I'd like to say this too. You guys don't think for a minute that the time is wasted in any way by sending me these messages thanking me for some of this content we've been doing, because it feels so good. It's fantastic. I love it. I eat it up. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're getting something out of it, because I'm doing this for two people, for them and for me, because otherwise I lose my freaking mind.
Completely. And I'm sure you're doing the same thing. I watch someone like Gary Vee and how he always talks about the way that people need to build stuff is interacting. Well, I think in the same way that you have, like, every single person that watches our shows is important. So if someone takes the time to write me and say, hey, I really like your show, I spend every chance I can to write them back. And this has been like obviously we've had a plethora of time to write people back and say, hey, thank you for being a fan. And what, for me, whether it's my NASCAR stuff, Top Gear, Hyperdrive, whatever it is, all these people right now are just consuming content. And so much of it is stuff that we've already done that, like, what a great time to celebrate other people.
No, and I know it's not a battle of who's nicer, because you'd probably win that, but the one thing that I find myself doing sometimes, like, so I'll be at an event very similar to you. I can even pick an exact event. Like, we went to the NASCAR race at Texas Motor Speedway, and we went, of course,
yes.
You interviewed drivers, like all these popular celebrities. I saw lots of boobies and drunk people, and the sorry, I got distracted. The funny thing is someone will give me, like, someone will hand me something, like, say, hey, would you like a beer, or would you like a water? And in my head, I go, wow, like, because think of the travel of that thing. Like, they went to the store and got it. They put it in the cooler. They brought it to the campground. They then carried it to whatever that event is. And now they're sacrificing one of them for me and for my crew, saying, oh, here you go. And I'm amazed that, and this whole thing has made people nicer too, which I know I have ADD and I'm all over the place, but this whole thing has everyone just being nicer, and I love it. I absolutely love it. This is what we really are. These are our true colors. That's what's happening.
Oh, totally. And I love that you went to Texas Motor Speedway, because I think Eddie Gossage, who's my friend there, the track president, I think they do such a good job at trying to make all these different pockets. Because you saw the infield camping is totally different from, like, the family camping outside by the grocery store. And they have all these different spots. But at the core of it lies this. It is nomads for a party. And people there, it's one of the only places I think you can go have no food, no drink, no place to stay, and you can make friends.
Yeah.
And all weekend just have the time of your life. And you saw there are people, I mean, when you walk around the infield Texas Motor Speedway, you see people who say, oh, I've been here for 15 years, and these people over here, these are my closest friends. We met them year 2, and we come back every year and we have a party together. You go, like, where else in the world would you find this kind of stuff?
And by the way, just, I can't go by this, since this is technically a drunken travel or a travel podcast. I have to say, highly recommend experiencing the camping at Texas Motor Speedway, because it is out of control. And I know on NBC you guys do fantastic coverage, and you do what you can do, but I'm saying there's a whole nother facet going on there that is out of control. Absolutely nuts.
It's crazy. I mean, I've covered Talladega on Halloween before, and I felt like I knew what a good party was. And then NBC sent me to the Kentucky Derby, which I have to believe you've been. I've never seen more attractive people throw up in trash cans than I have at the Kentucky Derby.
Now, let me ask you this, though, because you're fancy. Like, don't kid yourself. I know you wear the plaid shirt, but you're fancy. Did you go to the infield?
Oh, you know I did. Okay, for the record, when you say I'm fancy, I'm out there in a $100 Shinesty suit. And Shinesty, they make amazing stuff, and every year they make me my own. So it's like a $200 suit. And they sent me out there the very first time. I go in the infield, and I realize, like, these are my people. I know it's horse racing, but this is like the infield of Talladega, of Texas Motor Speedway at night. Like, the infield at the Kentucky Derby is so rowdy. And then a guy tried to fight me, and he was wearing a bow tie. And this is one of the first times I've ever worn a suit at work, right? And security stops him, and they're like, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to throw him out? And I have to, like, lean forward to listen to him. He's got a British accent. and he's screaming about Top Gear and how we ruined the show doing an American version and we'll never be. Now, meanwhile,
Because that's your
we
fault, by the
had,
way.
yeah, right? Like, oh, I'm sorry. And we were in our last season of Top Gear that was airing here on History. And the security, when they looked at me, they're like, "Do you want us to throw him out?" And I was like, "No, he's not going to remember this tomorrow. Like, we're fine. I just got to go get the shot." I was like, "But just between us, don't ever take crap from someone in a bow tie.
Right.
But let's get back to work." And man, what an amazing party!
I'm still in shock that you almost got in a fight. I just find it hard to believe with that smiling face anyone would even want to fight you.
I was as surprised as you could be because I just all of a sudden this guy's screaming everything you could think at me, and I was like, "Who? Boy, this guy's mad. Who's he talking? Oh, he's talking to me. Oh boy, I can't get in a fight. I mean, of all the dumb stuff I've done at a racetrack, this is guy who's going to throw haymakers at me. Oopsie."
You know, the most interesting thing to me about the infield at the Kentucky Derby is there are very few places to actually see horses racing from the infield.
Almost none.
None.
There is no view. There's about an 8-foot break in the fence.
Or you could stand on a porta
in one
potty.
spot. Yes, the porta potty, and I didn't see any races when I was there. It rained. Last year I was there with Dale Jr., and he and I almost lost our shoes trying to do the walk on the track with all the horses coming around. And I wear sneakers, and I don't, like I'm in a pair of like Air Max 90s that I didn't lace, and we're in 8 inches of mud. And so it was the worst. It's the worst idea I've ever had to not wear boots because they, of course, are like, "Hey, do you want some of these rain boots?" No, those would look stupid. I'll just wear my sneakers, and then I come back barefoot. But yeah, that infield there, they have a big TV, and people basically just sit and watch the TV, and that's what they do, and they drink and they.
There's a little bit of a what horses kind of mentality.
But man, it should be on everyone's list for great sporting events. The Kentucky Derby should be on
I had the chills. And we actually obviously have footage of it. I'm getting sort of teary-eyed at the end of it because it was just an emotional experience. And I think the reason I almost cried is because of the access we suddenly had. Like you just mentioned Dale Jr. like it's nothing. Like, oh yeah, just my buddy Dale Jr. But I know that you realize that is incredible that you have a relationship with a guy that is probably the biggest name in American racing, and very similar thing. Like I know how amazing it was. We somehow managed to be right on the rail. Like you can actually see me and my buddy Glenn that I work with. He's our sound guy. You can see us almost high-fiving the winner the year we were there. We're like this as he's going across the finish line on the inside rail. Like we're right on the rail where we're not supposed to be. And that's one of the coolest things about doing this stuff is sometimes that access. Like if you had told me, like when I'm just in high school, just sitting there barely paying attention and reading car magazines, like if you had told me like, yeah, someday you'll be talking to Mario Andretti, or you'll be at the Kentucky Derby, or you'll be talking to drunk people at a wonderful off-road event in Texas, like I never would have believed you.
And when you feel, what is it? It's probably 160, 180,000 people on their feet in that one moment, watching these incredible horses just with the power that they have race by you, and these people somehow holding on to the back. It's just hard to put that into words, what that can feel like. But I'm with you, like you almost get teary-eyed thinking, I'm a part of this one moment in time that is so huge. And then they're going to do another one next year, and we can come back, and it'll be awesome. It's bonkers. But because I think I was the same guy reading magazines in high school, trying to think like, how do I get paid one day to do stuff that I love? Because I want some of these cars.
Yeah, that was my thing. I had I counted this once. By the time I was 23, I had done 27 different jobs, and in that process of just working everywhere, doing everything, I learned that I'm going to do something that I just smile and have a great time. Like, obviously it's a job. And to me, I don't know if you agree with me, the only hard part really sometimes is just the getting there. Like, just the actual airport or whatever else is involved. But once I'm there, holy shit. Like, it's a beautiful thing.
Just let it rip. 100%. Because that's what I think makes it so fun is that some weekends, for me, if I'm going to a NASCAR track, it's a place that I've been before because I've been to every one of them. But with NBC, we try to find something different every time we go there. So whether it's trying to find a new team or a new driver, something that's kind of different, but the fans are really what makes all of these events work. As you know, if people don't go to these events, not only do you and I have no job, but everyone else related to it, it doesn't exist. Without fans, NASCAR is 200 people in a parking lot. And that's why they've always been so important. But I think that joy of what's new and what's different, I do think I travel enough. Like, this is the longest I've not been at an airport in 15 years.
See,
and what a crazy, like, I know TSA agents by name. Like, it's too much sometimes. But that's, if that's the worst part of what we get to do, what a blessing.
But see, I'll give you a little known fact that is it shows you how my world kind of bleeds into, or not my world, but my interests bleed into yours. I'm a road dog. So a lot of you mentioned you've seen some of the places I've been. Most of the time that you've seen me, I drove there. So I've been banned multiple times from various rental car companies for returning a car with 6,800 miles on it.
Does that mean, does that include, you went to that, it's like a Canadian country festival. There. You did not.
Swear, absolutely. I can tell you a story related to it. I feel like I might have told it already on the podcast, so I apologize if I did. But so heading into that one, we're at the border, and you find this, you're way more visible than I'm on these late night drunken shows, but you're hugely visible, so you can understand this. But so I'm going into Canada, and I've done shoots in Canada before, and they have a thing in Canada. They don't want to take work away from a Canadian. So when you're going in, they just want to make sure if you're going there for business, are you doing a job that a Canadian can do? Now, for me to answer that, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like my job's easy. So I'm like, yeah, anyone can do this. And so of course I'm going to say going there for, that it's for pleasure, it's not for business. And so as we're driving in, and again, I'll usually talk someone into coming. So this time it was, again, Glenn, our audio guy, is with me, and we're going into Canada, and the customs guy's like, he's looking at the paperwork, and then he kind of looks up and he's like, Art Mann. He's like, oh, are you going up? And he knew all the events that were going on that weekend. And so I can't say, no, this is just for fun. I had to be honest with him. But he didn't even think twice. He didn't care. Like, whatever. He just lets me right in. Now, coming back, and we all know this, the customs is way different coming back into the homeland. And so I'm coming back into the country, and I said to Glenn, hey, dude, what is that town? Regina, I think. And I know you can't be too racy, but I can. It's Regina, the city that rhymes with fun. And so we decide we're going to. I say, hey, dude, let's bail at like 5 a.m. so there's no line at customs. And so we drive up, and there's no line. The disadvantage to this, travel tip for you guys listening.
It's only you.
Huh?
Then it's only you.
And there's only us, and there's nothing for them to do. But anyway. The contrast of going into Canada and they knew me to coming back home and the guy had no clue who I was. And so he goes, what were you doing up there? And I said, we go to this event, we travel around and we shoot these different events. And the guy goes, that's a job? and I go, yeah. And then the other guy goes, yeah, I find it hard to believe someone's paying you just to go to these drunken events. And then it ends with them, they had to Google me and everything but they still searched all our stuff. But it was it was harder to get back in. But anyway, enough about me. I know it's called the Art Mann podcast, but I try not to make it about Art Mann.
No, I'm so glad to know that, though, because there were those times when, customs agents are different. And it's hard for people to know. Like, we went to Tijuana to shoot Top Gear years ago, and I'm in like a 73 VW bus. Right. I don't know who it's registered to. I don't know if the plates are good. I don't know anything about it except they were little cameras in the car. And I'm driving with zero paperwork, and they pulled me over going into Mexico. They let Tanner and Adam go through no problem, but the big dude with the beard and the hippie van, the whole time I'm like, I just didn't think typically this was how the story went. I didn't think people would get in trouble going down. I thought it would be harder to come back in a situation like this. And it took 20 minutes until eventually my terrible Spanish was like, I'm trying to shoot a TV show, so I'm trying to remember, like, is it película? Like, it just was a real comedy of errors. And eventually someone walked up and they're like, that's a guy from Top Gear. They're fine. Like, oh, thanks.
I like
gracias.
What I pull out of that story is I like that you really did this, because, too often with so many of these shows, everything is fake. I like that you're actually driving these things,
There were so few things that we didn't do. And there were a lot of people, I think, that thought when we were doing the show that it was scripted. But as you know, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a show having a producer and a show being scripted. I was like, oh no, we had producers. They knew what we were doing. They just didn't tell us. But that's one of those moments where they're like, cool, we're gonna fly into San Diego, we'll drive down to Tijuana, things will be great. And they don't tell you anything
See, I
else.
love that. That makes me want to rewatch them because I love that it's all legit like that. And
Oh
and
yeah.
sometimes too, depending on who you're working with, but you'll have a producer, and some people will be given more things to say than others because they need it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But for the
Yeah.
most part, I'm guessing you were able to just say whatever you want.
Well, it was cool because we would get in these cars and we would just start driving them, and a producer would say, "Tell me your favorite things about this car," and all three of us would just start talking, and then a few minutes later say, "All right, what do you not like about it?" And so eventually they would listen, and somebody's writing all that stuff down, and they would have a story editor try to make something cohesive out of the crap that we said, because some days you're in a terrible car that makes no sense, and then other days you're in something amazing, and it's a love story. So it was a hard job. I don't know how they did that, especially the three of us are so different, but I think that's what made the show so fun, you know? I just can't believe that you're into cars. That blows my
Oh my
mind.
god, dude!
That I could always tell, like you can, if you spot a cool little Camaro or something, you always give it love, but I never put two and two together that you might also be a huge car guy.
No, I have like, man, we could talk for hours, but I have so many car questions for you, but that's one of the things we talk about, some of the amazing advantages of doing this kind of stuff for work. To me, like, because before I did the drunken travel stuff, I just sort of did the sexy travel stuff for the E channel, but I also did celebrity stuff there. So I've had the opportunity to talk to some, crazy, like, Jim Carrey, Jennifer Aniston, like Will Smith, like the biggest names, and spend like lots of time with them. But when I think in my head, I'm like, oh, remember that time I got to drive that F50, or oh, remember that Lamborghini race we did, like. That's what sticks in my head, because those are things where you're sitting there, and so that's why I'm telling it to you. Is you're sitting there going, is this real right now? Like, is this okay? I can drive this. Like, you always just feel like someone's gonna come and say, hey, give me the keys, man. What are you doing?
Oh, so many times. The very first show that we shot for Top Gear, I was in a Lamborghini uh, Murcielago Super Veloce, and I was driving up. I live in Atlanta, right? So I flew out to LA. I stayed at producer's house, and we're driving up what I think is the 405, and we go off to somewhere. We're heading towards like kind of Palmdale, and I look down, and I'm going so fast that I know if I was going that speed in Georgia, I would definitely be in jail. And it happened like that, and you realize like I feel like a superhero. I feel like Batman in this moment. Normal people shouldn't have a car like this, and that was my first day at Top Gear.
What was your first car?
My first car was a 1981 Volkswagen Rabbit pickup. Do you remember those?
Yeah, no, I had a friend that had the what was it called, the Wolfsburg edition, and we thought that meant like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be like it's on rails. And then meanwhile, you could take the fastest of that era, was probably the GTI, and if you drive that today, although an amazing car with an amazing piece of history, it's a very slow car now.
Oh yeah, I mean that was like considered, the GTI was like the hot hatch,
Yeah.
right? And it had all of 83 horsepower,
Exactly.
but relative to the time, it seemed so cool. Yeah, mine was from my grandpa. It was a diesel 4-speed, and it was an awesome gift. But my grandpa was a real cheapskate, and so it had no heat. It only had heat, had no radio, it had no vent windows. Everything was vinyl, and he lived in New Mexico, so it was like sunburnt and sun faded. And my dad and I flew out there when I was 13. My grandpa taught me how to drive on a dirt road, which was so cool. And then my dad and I had the longest road trip of our lives back from New Mexico all the way to Birmingham, Alabama, pulling like a 9 or 10-foot sailboat behind it, doing all of 58 miles an hour coming home.
Wait, where'd you get the sailboat?
My grandpa just randomly had a sailboat in the desert of New Mexico and said, like, oh, you guys should take this with you too. And they're like, oh, okay.
I love this
We
guy.
traded that for a motorcycle. Yeah, it was awesome. But that I look at kids now, and cars are so much nicer in every way, and I almost feel like it's a terrible disadvantage for a 16-year-old to get a hand-me-down today, because it's like, yo, you got to really work to afford a car like this. Like, that's not what any of us drove.
Yeah. I had my first car. This will blow you. Like, if you're wondering if I was a redneck, this will actually answer that question. My first car, so I used to pick apples after school, and so I lived walking distance from the school, but to go pick apples, I would take the bus. It was freaking genius. I would just jump on the bus, and it would let me off at the apple orchard. And I can still remember this, because to me it was such a dream. Because this is my first job. And by the way, I'm in 7th grade. And so I'm picking apples. This is my first job. I have money now. Like, look at me, I have money. And so you just start wondering, what can I buy with it? And so here's this bus, and there's a 69 Ford van on this guy's front lawn. Pretty much definitely a piece of shit. But
just bone stock Econoline or what?
Yeah, it's a solid van too. So it's like
panel,
like
creeper van.
Yeah, someone else's time, someone in the 60s, that was for sure a creeper van. It should say free candy on it or whatever. And but I still remember it had a piece of plywood leaning against it, and on the plywood it said $150. And so I remember asking my mom. I said, "Hey, Mom, I saw this van. Can I buy it?" And this is why I love my mother. My mother I love this woman. I could cry right now. I love spending time with my mom. I love talking to my mom. My mom is beautifully crazy, and she's just the most generous, kindest person. Anyway, I said, "Mom, can I buy this van that I saw?" And she goes, "It's your Apple money." And so my first car was in 7th grade. I bought a 69 Ford van, 3-speed on the column, took off all the doors, and we turned it into a backyard. Like I had like a pseudo dirt track, and we would just drive and play fun games of jumping off bikes into the van and jumping on the, trying to stay on the roof and get, my friends I would have to try to throw them off the roof and all sorts of nonsense games.
That is amazing.
But that was my first car. So I learned how to drive a stick. No one taught me. I grew up with my mom. My dad was, this is more information than you asked for, but my dad, I think the deal with my dad is he did his best, but compared to a lot of dads, that really wasn't that great. But
sure,
I do believe he did his best, but I grew up with my mom. And so there was no one to teach me how to drive a stick. And so I was self-taught. This van showed up. These people towed it to my house and dropped it off. And then I just had to figure out how to do this thing. But no
way. So mom didn't know how to drive a stick either.
No, my mom did. I don't know, like I pretend I'm this super nice guy, but I guess at the core is also this stubborn dickhead. And I was like,
that was going to teach himself.
Yeah, I was like, come on, Mom, I know how to drive this.
Oh gosh, that's
the other truck I drove.
I just can't imagine
more.
You.
I know you're my guest, but you're inspiring me right now with the car stuff. It's so fun.
Please.
So I used to deliver when I was in 9th grade, between 8th and 9th grade. I delivered whole pigs with this guy to restaurants. They were in a plastic bag.
Sure.
Just we'd pick them up at the slaughterhouse, and we had to deliver these pigs to restaurants. And I don't want to say this guy's name, but on the way home from delivering the pigs, we would always end up in the parking lot of some roadside bar, and then it was always the same drill. Because I'd be sitting there on the passenger side, just chilling, like reading my car magazines, waiting for this guy to come out, and I'd hear him trying to climb the left side. Keep in mind, this truck was a double axle, like it's a big ass, like just shy of being a semi, and
sure.
he'd be struggling on the driver's side to get in, and I'd be like, oh, here it comes. And he'd go around to the other side, and he'd knock on the door, and he'd go, hey, you're driving. And I'm like, and so I'd have to drive this truck from like the Boston area back all the way west in Massachusetts back to where we're from, and, go through the turnpike and everything.
Tunnels and everything? Oh, God.
Yeah, and I'm sweating, and like I said, it's between 8th and 9th grade, and he'd go, sit up straight and use deep voice. And so I'm just like, how you doing? Like it was
to pay for the tolls and stuff and keep going.
Yeah, because he's hammered over there, and whatever.
Of course.
But it was great because
what a stud you were, man! To go back to school and be like, yeah, what'd you guys do yesterday? I drove back from Boston. Like that's
no, and you don't know.
That's crazy,
we get
man.
You know when you go out shooting and stuff. It's fun. People give us love and give us attention. You don't know attention until you have a dead pig on your shoulder walking into a restaurant, into the back door of a restaurant.
That's next level stuff. So did you, by the time you turned 16, did you still have that van?
The van ended up because we had a pretty big backyard. The van just sort of ended up as part of the backyard. I remember I sold it for the junk metal, and it on the phone, the guy said he was going to give me $35. And then when they got there, he wanted to charge me money to take it. And so I talked him down to just zero. Just say, hey, my mom's gonna kill me. Can you guys just take it and just call it zero? What was your very first? Because what I want to know, and again, I don't want to keep you on this thing all day, but what I want to know is how did you end up doing the on-camera stuff? Because that's what's always interesting to me. How did you decide? Like, because it certainly is it's stepping in shit. Because all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
It's so I always felt like it's what I wanted to do and it's what I was supposed to do. So I went to school at the University of Georgia for marketing, and I felt like it was kind of the most non-specific business major because I thought I got to give this a shot, and if I fail at it, I definitely got to get a regular job. So I'll go do marketing. And one of my friends said senior year, I looked at him in one of our top marketing classes, and I said like, yeah, I'm gonna be on TV for cars. I'm gonna figure out how to make this work. And luckily that worked. So I'm not a liar, but I ended up my first job out of school was for country music television, and CMT was so small. I was in the marketing department doing these shows all over the country for them in like a F-350 dually pulling this show trailer, and I would go to one week I'd be at like the state fair, the next week I'd be at a NASCAR race, and I was trying to like get people just pumped about the brand. Right? It was cool. Um, Mobile marketing's tough, especially then. I was the only person that knew anything about cars, and these trailers, if it rained, would swell up like a sponge. And so they just kept calling me, and I was like, y'all paid millions of dollars for these things. I can't help fix it just because I know cars. Like, I wouldn't have built it out of particle board. I don't know what else to tell you. So it's funny. I was flipping cars the whole time. I came home. My wife and I were about to get married, and everyone's like, "Hey, you got to get a real job." I ended up, family friend got me a job at Hertz. So again, I'm getting to be around cars, and I'm winning sales awards and stuff, and I am miserable. And I knew I needed to quit because it made me hate people, and that's just the total opposite of
Yeah.
who I am. And I was like, "All right." So I quit, and the guy was like, "So are you putting in your 2 weeks?" I was like, "No, no, I was going to get my keys and then leave. So I'm just going to go." And he's like, "Okay, fantastic." So I quit. Next day, I showed up at a radio station where my father-in-law knew somebody, and I just started showing up every single day. And I watched this guy do a show, and that was the first time I really learned anything about NASCAR. And another person there hired me away from the radio station to come help them do karaoke and host all the stuff in their club. And 8 months after that, I'm on Craigslist thinking like, man, I'm working in this bar. I don't drink very much, but I smell like a trash can when I come home at 3 in the morning. My wife's working normal hours, and I find this link for a job on Craigslist, and it says it's a national motorsports network looking for an on-site marketing rep who can also be an MC. And I was like, this sounds cool. I'm going to send my stuff in. It turns out it's for Speed Channel. I drove to Charlotte, had an interview that didn't go very well because I felt like one person just never looked up. And the joy was she was my boss for the next 2 years.
Nice.
But I'm not. I think she thinks I'm funny now. We'll have to see about that. But yeah, it turned out to be this thing for Speed Channel, and I showed up my first day, and Art, there was this huge like DJ setup with little mini turntables and a mixer and all this stuff. And I was like, yo, they asked me if I could work a CD player. What do I do? And I was like, oh, well, you can't tell anybody you don't know what you're doing. So I called my friend Yvonne Monet, and Yvonne is still an amazing DJ in Atlanta. And she was the person who had hired me away at the radio station and said, hey, this is what I see. Tell me how to work this. I can't tell anybody I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here to get on TV, not spin CDs, but I'm going to have to spin some CDs to get there. So she walked me through everything. I never told anybody I didn't know what I was doing. And I just kept working away at it and saying, hey, I'm here to be on TV. I want you to give me a shot. And a guy named Chris Long, who we call Muscles, Muscles was the one that said, hey, I noticed that people will stick around with you when there's no shows going on in between races. Um, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't want to talk about the cars. And he's like, but you're a car guy. I was like, yeah, but like, it's the people that make people
Yeah.
interested in these cars. So let's go talk to these people about cars. And he was like, all right, we'll give you a shot. And if it works, cool. If not, you got to work for me the rest of the next year. And I was like, okay. So they let me go do this scavenger hunt in 2006 at the Daytona 500. So I'd started the year before, and thank goodness it worked and people liked it, and so that's how I started doing stuff on air. And Muscles moved me in '07 to just doing stuff on air full time. And then Top Gear found me because a race fan loaded something I did onto YouTube illegally. Because to be fair, Speed Channel didn't think the internet was going to be a
Right.
thing
Of course.
that was going to be
Of course.
important. So they didn't load anything up. But this nice person who I still don't know who it was loaded this video, and that's what got me an interview. And I guess you'd say the rest is history, but it's crazy when I think about it.
By the way, and I know it was back a little in that story, but you did mention Georgia, and I know to the people listening, they know that we went to a Georgia home game in Athens,
Oh,
and oh my gosh, what a
time of your life, right?
what a shit show! But also at the same time, beautiful, like just amazing tradition around it, like the ring of the bell, like after the victory. And I asked people like, how long will this bell ringing go on? And she's like, until the drunk people are are all passed out.
About 4 or 5 a.m. till they've gone to the grit, they've had a little breakfast, and they go home. It is. I worked at the visitor center at UGA when I was there, and I had no idea that it was like a super competitive position.
Yeah.
I just thought like, cool, I want to work somewhere on campus. This would be great. I sent all my stuff in, and I think I was definitely like the token weirdo. And they try to have a little something for everybody. But I used to drive the minibus around campus and give tours to parents and kids. And you'd have one or the other, right? Either a parent had no interest in going there, and the kid totally did, or it was like the parents like, wait till you see my old dorm. And the kid's like, no, I'm not going here. This sucks. So it was the most fascinating job, but I
I
loved it.
love that you actually did that. Did you have two different like speeches you would give depending on who's in the van? Yeah.
Completely, because you're trying to read. It's like doing stand up. You're trying to read the room, but you're either driving the minibus and pointing stuff out, or you're the person looking at everybody, and then you all get out and you do this walking tour, and so you realize real quickly who you're talking to, and so you had basically like, I've got my parents' stuff and I got my kids' stuff, and I'll figure out how to balance that because you'd have a little bit of everybody in there, but Athens is it's still such an amazing town. When you see, they have that like, what is it, a drinking town with a football
Yeah.
problem, I think, or what the T-shirts
Yes.
say, and that's completely accurate, as you saw.
No, we witnessed it firsthand, and I think it was Georgia LSU, and so even the people coming in to see the game were also, well, they were pros.
And that's two different types of slurred accents at one time.
My favorite thing about these cars, especially when you talk about like older classic cars, don't you love that moment where you like, because it reminds me of when you're a kid and you get your license or you get your first car. That moment when you go just pick up a car and then you get it back to your house and now you're just alone with it. It's like, now I get to just look at this thing just from front to back, top to bottom. Look around, look under the seats, like, because there's such a history with every one of them, and that's my favorite moment. Is just the moment I get to just be alone with her and just get to know her. Just and try to just imagine.
And I love that you say her, because in your mind you're like, well, it's obviously a person. This
Yeah.
is a love of mine already. It's going to be a her. I'll probably have to name it. I always felt like the moment it was mine was the moment that I washed it myself in the driveway and had that moment of like, oh, welcome home. You're here.
Yeah, no, dude, I've had, I'll do the impulse buy. I've even while I'm traveling, I'll look at cars. Like I still remember. I don't know if it's a great story, but I learned real fast that if you're going to buy these older cars, that there are different definitions. Same word, like, so if you say no rust in California, you go look at that car, it has no rust. But if you're in Alabama and you go look at a car that has no rust, and I got there, I drive way out of my way, and I go, you said there was no rust. And he goes, this is no rust. What are you talking about? And there was rust.
Well, no, it's not rusted through. You can't see through. That's just surface.
That's exactly what he said.
It's covering. If it's covering the entire surface, it's not just surface rust. Sir.
That's exactly what he said. And it was a '69 Mustang, and the leaf springs, the clamps on the leaf springs were just completely ready to just go. And so I'm like, okay, come on, dude. Like, I went out of my way. Like, you told me there was no rust, but.
I love that we are the same person, because I believe that you would be on Craigslist or now Facebook Marketplaces. Like, that's where everybody puts cars up. But every time I'd be in a different town, I'd be like, well, I'll just check. I don't want to miss a dream car that's right here under my nose.
No, and I've been on shoots. We talked about that Texas Motor Speedway shoot. I still remember at that shoot, this lady pulls up in this '77 Trans Am, and she's like, and it had a for sale thing in the window, and so I'm walking around, I'm holding the mic. I'm like, hey, hold this for a second. And I'm like, hey, what are you asking for this? Like, it became like my number one priority to get to the bottom of this '77 a '77 Trans Am, to make sure that I'm not missing out on a really good deal right there. But then I have remorse, because I'm sitting there going, because at the time she only wanted 14 for it, and I'm going, I should have just scooped that thing up. Like, that was an awesome, clean car.
Could have made 10 grand on that.
Exactly.
But those are the funny things that, like, we also, I think as car people, we romance the idea of like, okay, well, if I buy this now, if I just put a couple grand into it, it's going to be worth something. And the weird thing is, it's all about like aspirations. It's all about selling it, flipping it, moving up to the next one that's nicer. And I think that's why I own too many cars right now, because I've got like 3 projects that I'm always like, I'll half finish something and then move to the next one and half finish that, and then I'll come back. And
there's a 63
cycle.
Corvette that I picked up that was on Craigslist. I don't love Corvettes. I had no interest in a Corvette.
Isn't that the split window?
No, it was a convertible, which I don't like because I feel like it's sort of no offense to anyone that has them, but it's sort of a creeper car to me. But especially if you have the white walls, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird. But he had a factory hardtop on it, and the factory hardtop is kind of a cool shape, and I like the combo together. And then the first thing I did is just put some sick wheels on it and stuff. But anyway, my point is I had no interest in it. It was an impulse buy, but it's actually a car memory of mine that really hit it home of how much, not that I already knew this, but this guy cried when I left with the car. Like, so I think he was in trouble. That's why I picked up the car. I'm going through Craigslist and I'm like, this guy wants $25 for this? This price can't be right. And so I go over there and he's like, no, it's for real, but it has to be today and it has to be cash. And I'm like, okay. And so I did it. But as I was leaving, he was crying, he was in the driveway crying. And so it's okay to say this because we're not giving his name, but I think he just owed a bookie money or something because it looked like a desperate situation. And so, but that's the thing about these vehicles, man. Like, we can be friends. I'll be friends. Anyone listening, you, of course, anyone that loves cars like this, that they'll bring out that kind of emotion, we can be friends.
Every time I see a 81 tan Mercedes 240D, I think about my dad, because my dad got 450,000 miles out of it before it got totaled, and he was heartbroken by it. Just so unbelievably sad that this 4-speed, for the record, that would barely do 65, but it started every time he went out there. He loved this. It was a tank of a car. Like, the reason that I like cars at all is because of my dad. So I can't imagine what
is it, man? Help me understand it. What is
like
it about these things? Because we all have them. We all have these in our head. You have, I'll look at old pictures of cars I used to have, like they're just these old friends I haven't seen forever. Like, oh, there she is. Look at that.
Right? Well, for all of them, it's a time capsule, right? Like, even with your dad's shortcomings of what he missed with you, you still saw the best in him when you would try to look at him. In your mind, he'd still try to be this hero that had this badass 33 Ford.
And
right?
he was the older dad, and so this was the thing. We didn't play football together. We didn't mountain bike or ride motorcycles or anything, or he didn't get next to me in the 3-speed van and drive around. So the thing we did have in common was he would show up with this car and I would actually have an interest in it, and he would answer my questions and we would talk about it. And it's a nice moment, man. The invention of the automobile, man. Do you have any tattoos of cars?
I don't. You know what's funny? I don't yet have any tattoos. Oh. I think I turn 40 tomorrow, and I think this is the year.
What would you get? What car would you get a tat of?
That's a great question. There's so many. I think I used to collect when I would go to junkyards, which if people don't go, take your kids and just go wander around. Oh, it's the most fascinating.
It is.
Thing, right? It's because every time I would go to a junkyard and I would see a car, I would think, how did you get here?
Yep.
Who loved you? Who didn't love you? What was the last song that car played on the radio? Like, I just go crazy with it, but I would always collect emblems. And I'd walk out of a junkyard paying $5 for as many emblems as I could hold. And so I'm sure that there are a ton that I've still saved in shoeboxes that I think I'd reach for. Do you have any car tattoos?
I don't, but I was looking because on my wall in the garage, there's just random emblems over there and stuff. And I'll even take. Here, hold on. I'll show you one.
Don't leave me on the beach alone. I'm not a strong swimmer.
And sometimes. If you're watching this, sorry, and if you're listening, I just had to go get the emblem. But sometimes it doesn't have to be where it's a classic or anything, but there's just a story behind it. This fell off of a rental car.
I'm going to guess a Denali.
Yeah, it's a GMC logo. This fell off a rental car when we were shooting out at not Pismo, what is it called? Glamis.
Oh, yes. You took a rental on the dude?
Thank you.
Of course you did. Of course you.
Isn't that why you rent?
Oh my gosh, that's why you never buy a car that used to be a rental because of you and
Yeah.
me. What did I love that you're phrasing it as that emblem fell off. I assume it had some help. What were you doing that helped it?
Oh, I actually pulled the emblem off. Just straight up.
Just you know what? You're coming with me.
but
You're a keeper.
but
Yeah,
we did lose the whole
that's
front
what that.
bumper
It's
at
a
one point just
connection.
from you hit those whoops in that rental car and that front bumper will come right off. That whole front piece, that valance.
Oh, I know. We were on Pismo, which is a beach in
Yeah.
California, and Ken Lingenfelter had loaned us his Escalade, like his personal Escalade, and Adam was driving that for Top Gear, and one of the PAs ripped the bumper cover completely off, and then the next time we see it, it's just in the back seat, and we're like, y'all know we borrowed this from a real person who loves cars and builds. I don't know if this is a good idea. And the person was like, I don't drive a lot. I'm sorry.
And by the way, you weren't trying to. I know you don't need to explain it. I just feel like in your presence, I should. I think the problem with Top Gear of any critics of it is that it was named Top Gear. Like I think that should have been somehow its own thing because let's be honest, that the original Top Gear is just that. It's very original. It's amazing.
Yes.
But what you guys did is also very fun and very original, and it's just very tough to have it named the same thing, especially when there's once upon a time you would probably never see the original one, but the fact that we've all seen every episode of the original and then here comes the American version,
Yeah.
it's going to be criticized.
You're completely right. And I think it was hard because I think people thought it was like a deal where we rented the name or turns out it was BBC made our show. The original Top Gear UK guys wanted our show to do well. They made money off it. So it was a good thing for everybody. But it was, to me, it's like when a band gets signed and suddenly they're on the radio and people act like they don't like them. Everyone acted
Yeah.
like Top Gear UK was a secret. Like, this is my show. These are the greatest drivers in the world and they're mine. So how dare you try to emulate it? And I remember the first interview they had, they said, what's going to make this show fail? I was like, well, if you try to cast 3 people to pretend they're those people, this is going to be awful. And they're like, all right, well, what's going to make it a success? I was like, well, if you take 3 idiots in cars, that can work. But it's going to take time. Like, you've got to build it so people know we're not trying to be them and we're not going to encroach on their love of those 3. And then I think once people realize that we weren't, they're like, oh, you can enjoy Coke and Pepsi. I don't have to hate one or the other. It doesn't,
Right.
like they're not mutually exclusive. So, yeah. But I've never punched anyone over cold cuts. So I'll take that one with me.
Have you worked on a show that we've never heard of? Like a show that, because I know you've done a ton of shows. Is there a show we haven't heard of?
My very first show where I was just on TV for Speed was called Speed Road Tour Challenge, where we would have these 4 race fans do competitions every single weekend. And whoever won at the end would get a job. Basically take like my old job as the DJ sort of thing for Speed Channel. I don't think anyone saw that. But pretty much everything else I've done, I think people have seen. I did a show between seasons of Top Gear called Lost in Transmission, which was sort of my attempt at like a regular folks overhauling.
Oh, I have seen that one.
That one's really fun because, Chip is so talented and Chris Jacobs and what that team can do is incredible, but not everybody can know what to do with $100,000 show build. So I said, like, let's just go fix somebody's car up that was maybe their dad's old car or something special. And George Flanagan, my friend that was a co-host with me, what I think you would love about George is George has his dad's 31 Ford Coupe. And when his dad passed away and the car had been in pieces for years, and George gets all of it back and he puts the whole thing together the way that he remembered his dad having the car. And when you open up the trunk, there's a picture of George when he was 5 years old, the last time that car was together, standing with his sister. And that was the last time he ever saw that car. And his dad passed away and never got to see the car finished. But when you talk about, these cars from your youth that mean something to him, George's dad, I think, had a lot of similarities to yours and was somebody that did the best he could, but wasn't present enough to be there in the ways that George, I think, would have loved. But when you see something like that, George understood every time we'd go get a car from somebody that had this emotional attachment. George was like, it's just like my 31. I get it.
By the way, I know you didn't ask, but my show that you haven't seen, I was a referee.
Yes, please.
I was a referee on a game show where every other week we're at a different beach around the world. So if you look at a map and just find these beaches, I was probably there. Like we traveled to so many different beaches around the world. It was insane, but I don't know that a lot of people saw the show.
What was it? What would y'all do? What were you a referee for?
So the show was called Search Party. It was on the E channel, and it was these two teams. It was like a red team and a blue team, and they had like each team had a captain, like a actual good-looking person, and then I was like the referee guy. Like I'm the guy you relate to, the average guy. And so they would have. I would give them things, kind of like in a sense, kind of like a Top Gear style, where I would just give them these cards. Sure. They're like, all right, here's what you're doing today. And then they'd get these cards, and it'd be like, you have to go find a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but made with, and then it was some local bread or whatever. And then they had to go do all these challenges all over the exotic location. And the funny part about the show is, if you're a student of game shows, this is why some of these shows that have been on forever are such genius, like a Jeopardy or whatever, where you have the final Jeopardy where you risk it all. On our show, you spent the whole episode doing these random tasks, and then at the end was the grand finale thing, but that was worth like 45,000 points. So you basically could phone it in for the whole show, and as long as you won that last thing. But no, that was it.
Can I tell you something? I saw that.
You did not see Search Party. There's no way.
I swear I did. I swear I did, because as you were describing it, I was like, yep, two colors. Sometimes they'd be cute. Sometimes they would be like, oh, okay, I guess Myrtle Beach doesn't have the pretty styles all the time. There you go. No, I absolutely saw that show, but I think it's because I have like a radar for stuff like that you would like. That's a show that you and I would watch if we were sitting on your couch. Yeah. Like we'd find a show.
No,
like
and if you are somewhere where you can find those old episodes, here's a behind the scenes tip: watch the final 2 weeks of the show. So in other words, the final 10 episodes, because they didn't care anymore. So no one was telling us how to do the show, and we were just having fun. And that's when I actually feel the episodes were really good, because we were able just to totally just goof around and have fun.
That's sometimes the best. When someone knows the lights are going off. Yeah. When somebody knows, hey, we're going to wrap it up, man, it's just
nothing to lose.
Holds barred. Yeah,
there's nothing to lose. So you're live a lot of the times, but when you do the recorded packages. Because I'm just imagining if you go to a place like Talladega is a great example. Is there just a ton of stuff that you guys can't show? Like you get the same stuff we get, but you just can't show it?
Absolutely. Because the funny thing is, the more it's funny, in the measurements of TV, the more successful that we are is how often can people see us. So the more that you and I have done to other people, it doesn't matter if we've been doing this for free our whole lives. We are successful and they know us, which means I see that guy, I want to go talk to him. And it's also gold for us. Like if people recognize you, you also know we're going to get something fun. The downside is when people recognize you and they are well past the point of being something that you can use, it's also really hard to throw the brakes on.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to crush them, and you're like, all right, okay. Like I've watched you so many times where you are trying to step away and get to the next thing, but you're like, man, this is my moment that we're having a minute together. I don't want them to walk away and go, Art was a huge jerk. So,
oh my God, I struggle with that, dude. You don't even know. I struggle with that so much because we try to talk to as many people as we can, and I always feel so horrible when I feel like we shorted, like we had to. Oh, I hate that. I'll lose sleep over that. Like I really do hate that.
It's such a hard balance, but people wouldn't know until you're there and in that moment. So yeah, is there a ton of stuff that we can't use? Absolutely. And sometimes one of my best friends is a guy named Kyle Petty, and Kyle, like he's been a huge part of NASCAR forever. But I'll be talking to someone and they'll just lean in because they know we're friends, and they'll be like, "Tell Kyle to cut his hair," and I'm like, I'm in the middle of an interview with like Tony Stewart, and this guy just yelled, "Kyle Petty, cut your hair." You're like, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, see, I think I get a different thing because they know the content that I will use, and so they're eager to provide that. And so they'll be like, just the one I always bring up is just so random because it's happened way more than once, is I'll get the following quote. Art Mann, hey Art Mann, you got to see my wife's tits. And I'm always like, what? Like, I'm sorry. And then I'll look up, because your habit is like, what's he talking about? And then sure enough, there she is. And she's like, here you go. And then I don't know, what do I say? Like, wow, fantastic. Like, oh, those are beautiful. Thanks, guys. Like,
You look well, ma'am. You look healthy. Great to see you. Like, you never, yeah, in Talladega, the infield there, like it's. I just had no idea how many wildly inappropriate things I could see in one central location.
I love
That's
it.
the joy of it, though, you know?
Dude, I love it so much. You're freaking fun as hell. We need to figure out something we could do together, man. I would have fun with you.
I would love it. And if we do more, I promise I'll trim the wall.
No, if you're watching, I don't know if I can
see.
I don't know if I can do this on fly, but if you guys are watching the video, let me see if I can show them. Sorry if you're listening.
I just didn't have time to edge that, y'all. I'm sorry. I wanted to. I'm at my mini studio that I've set up for NBC, and I have all these road signs, right? There's all about signs. I've got signs everywhere, and I don't know what to put up behind me. So I'm like, I'll just keep it gray until you tell me. But yeah, I hope we get to do a show together, man. How fun would that be? Maybe we'll do a show from your garage, but we'll actually do something with the stuff in the garage.
No, and what's nice about you is you didn't wreck it for me. You are actually a sincere, nice person. This is not some big act where before we went on, you're like, hey, man, you going to fucking roll or what? This is taking way too long. I committed to 30 minutes.
Hit the button. Hit the button. The good news is it's my birthday tomorrow, and my kids are working on something at the house for me. So this worked out perfectly. My phone didn't die, which was my real concern. Yeah, you know what? Take a water. Just cool
I left
down.
and got a water.
It's hot out there. You're staring at your shifter cart. I just want to say thanks, man. This has been so much fun, and you do something awesome out there in the world, and we need it right now. We need that love.
You're not
we
leaving
need
yet.
Art Mann presents.
This is
the
a
world.
nice
That's
goodbye, and you're very awesome with the kind words that I just totally stepped on. But you're not leaving yet because you have to do the speed round. If this is your first time listening, these are the 7 drunken travel questions, and it's called the speed round. It's the first thing that pops in your head. There's no right answer. I'm just looking for your opinion. So here we go.
Great.
My friend. So you're about to leave somewhere. What's the first thing you pack?
Ooh, raincoat every time.
Oh, nice. What's the best drinking song?
It's the most important thing. Best drinking song. Oh, gosh. Is it George Thorogood? 1 bourbon, 1 shot, 1 beer?
No, there's no right answer. This is an opinion.
Oh.
So, yes.
Then I'm going to... well, you know what? Just for oddness, then I'm going to go Chumbawamba's Tub Thumping.
Nice. Someone else said that. We've had that answer before.
It's just peculiar.
Name the Spice Girls.
Oh, okay. You got Posh, Sporty, Scary, Baby, and Ginger. I saw Spice World in the movie theater when I was a kid. We went with my friends. It was amazing.
I am in shock right now. You might be the. I don't know if you're the first one to get them right, but you're the first one to get them right that fast. What is your favorite road trip destination?
Ooh, favorite road trip destination: the beach. What beach? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Love Charleston, but I'm going to say the beach.
What is the best drink to start out the night?
Ooh, I usually drink bourbon and ginger ale, but I'm going to say start it out gin and tonic.
What is your go-to drunk fast food? David Hasselhoff style.
Ooh. Well, because I'm from the South, it's Waffle House.
Oh, dude. I love me some Waffle House.
It is, what a microcosm of life, the Waffle House.
It's so delicious, and then the bill comes, it's like $8. You're going, how is this $8?
Absolutely. Every time.
What is the best food to bring on an airplane?
None. It's the most offensive thing you can do. So the best thing you can do is bring nothing.
See, I expect you to say ribs or something with your background, with your.
That's true. My parents own a barbecue restaurant, so you know what? I'm gonna say, a rack of ribs.
Nice.
It's a good suggestion.
What celebrity would you like to see drunk?
Ooh. There's a lot. That's a tough one. I know this is a speed round, so we'll just have to cut out my humming.
Well, a couple episodes ago, we had a drunk guide for the speed round. It took, I think, about 14 minutes and 30 seconds, so you still got him beat.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna say. I'm trying to think of.
By the way, while he's thinking about that, if you're watching this at home, I stole this picture. This is actually Jay Leno's garage. My garage does not look as cool as this, but pretty badass. My Cobra's looking sick. So freaking shiny.
It looks so good. I'm gonna say Zach Braff because I'm a huge Scrubs fan.
Okay. And what is the drunkest place in the U.S.?
It's got to be Vegas. I mean, every time I go to Vegas, I go for work, and it seems like no one else got that memo.
Yeah, it's a hard place to actually work.
Yes.
By the way,
every time we go there for SEMA, everything.
By the way, the correct answer is Bakersfield on that one, but good guess.
Hey, best Italian food I've ever had in my life came from Bakersfield, a little place called Luigi's.
Did it really?
I went there to do a show with Kevin Harvick, and Harvick said, dude, you got to go. If you're here, go to Luigi's. And we're like, it's Kyle Petty and I. We're like, do we really need to go get Italian food in Bakersfield? It's the best Italian food I've had in my life.
This is not part of the speed round, but you have to pick one. Who's your favorite driver of all time? Doesn't have to be NASCAR.
Ooh, of all time? I'm going to say Kyle Petty.
Come on, that's your buddy.
No, it's true, though. Kyle Petty, Richard Petty, and then I'm going to say Carl Edwards. I miss him, man.
I'm not a name dropper by any means. At least I try not to be. But I did actually. We did a shoot for Hot Wheels once, way back. And
yes, with Kyle,
and we played on the little racetrack together, and then afterwards he fed us. He had the chef guy cook us up some all of us some chicken, and so I have a very fond memory of one certain Kyle Petty.
Do you know that when I tell you that we were excited about the hotels that would have your channel, that's because Kyle and I would text each other and say, "Hey, Art Mann, Channel 12." I just want you to know. He still is a fan of yours as well.
No, as far as the questions there, I've never actually answered them. But the celebrity I'd like to see drunk, I'd like to see Jeff Gordon get out there and get him really loosened up and then get some stories out of him.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that would be great. I was never sure if he was going to like me because I sometimes make the comparison when people ask how do you follow your dreams? I'm like, look, Jeff Gordon had a mustache and a mullet, and now he's married to a supermodel. So anything is possible, kids. Follow your dreams.
Who's the? And I'm sorry, it's hard to let you go because I freaking love this stuff, dude. But who do you think is the most talented driver? You have to pick one. And you can't say Kyle Petty.
Oh,
but who's the most talented driver? Natural talent.
I think Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Busch, hands down, is the most natural talent. He can wheel anything, anywhere, anytime.
And people are so divided
Jimmy
on him,
Johnson's
but even the people that aren't fans, they will admit, yeah, but he can drive.
Well, here's what's funny. The people that aren't fans of his, it's funny, half of them were Dale Earnhardt Sr. fans, and he was incredibly abrasive and pompous every shot he got. Kyle doesn't mean to be. Legitimately, he's just one of the most competitive people on the planet.
Isn't it the Jeff Gordon syndrome where you don't like him because there's so many times where he beat your driver?
Oh, yeah, right? Like, Kyle, when he wins, he doesn't usually just, kind of beat your driver. He beats him like a drum, man. And it's funny, when I watch people say, I've just had enough of Jimmy Johnson. He won too much. I'm like, Jimmy Johnson might be the greatest overall driver that this sport has maybe ever seen. And I want him to win 8 before he hangs it up. So I'm all for it. But, man, Kyle Busch is everything that people say. He is incredible.
You play Forza on Xbox? Do you do that?
I do. I get completely stumped. I'm much better in a real car than a virtual one.
Yeah, I go back and forth as far as which one I'm better at. I like to. I'm just like every other dude, man. I like to think that I'm good behind the wheel, but I know that. Here's my quick story. So I'm at California Speedway. It's this Lamborghini Owners Club day, and who's the guy? Balboni, the.
Yes. Oh, that they made the special edition after.
Yeah. So Balboni is there.
Was he there?
Huh?
Oh, come on. Oh, we're such nerds. I'm excited about that.
So I'm at the track. Well, first of all, all right, I'll tell you the whole story, and then we'll end this podcast and let you go. But so this might have to be a 2-parter, by the way. I enjoy you. I enjoy your company, man. So I get an email from this Lamborghini dealership that I knew these people, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to go out to the track on whatever date, blah, blah, blah." And in my head, I was going, I don't know if I can use that for anything, because I was thinking they wanted me to shoot it. Then I get a follow-up email that says, "Hey, we need to know if you're coming because we need to bring you a car. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Yes. Like that's.
I'll be there. Yes, of course.
And so we get there, and then, and you know from stuff like this, from a Lamborghini Owners Club day, you have such a variety of people because you have people that are horrible drivers. They just have a really, they have a lot of disposable income. And then you have guys like me that just think they're really good. It's the whole spectrum. And a lot of them, by the way, were taken off traction control because that's the man thing to do when you get to a track. And
such a terrible idea for that.
Do not do that. Yeah. I saw these beautiful $350,000 cars spinning in front of me at the track, and it was just the most glorious sight that's in your head forever. But anyway, my point is simply this. So I've done different driving schools, and I have a shifter cart, and I can drive stuff. I'm not amazing. I just think I am. And so on the track in my head, I'm like, man, I think I've passed just about everybody, even though it's not really technically a race. But I think I've passed everybody. I'm amazing. And then in the mirror, there he is. I'm like, is that Balboni coming up behind me? And I'm like, holy shit. And so you know the deal at the track. And if you're listening, if you might know it even better than me. But if you don't, I'll explain it to you. You basically just hold your line. You don't want to do anything crazy. You don't want to do anything stupid. You don't try to pull over because that's when you guys are gonna collect each other. So I'm just following the racing line, and Balboni passes me. We're at California Speedway, but they did the infield track that also used the outfield.
Yes, that's awesome.
And he passed me in a turn, this crazy four-wheel drift, like right by me. And then I said, oh, big deal, dude. I'm going to follow your line now, and then I'll know how to get around here the fastest. I followed him in one turn, and he was gone. Like
just like rocket.
Yeah, the guy helped design he drives every car. Like he knows how to drive. And so the point is that, like, no matter what you do, there's always someone that's just so good at it. It's just so humbling and so fun to get a front row seat and actually see someone like that. And so, so the moral of the story is I'm definitely not as good as I think I am, but I'm also not that bad.
For the record, if people don't know, no one casually owns a shifter cart. Like, you have so much cred for me for owning a shifter cart, because when I did, I got to do the Toyota Pro Celebrity
you
race,
won it.
I won it, which is insane. It's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. But that was during Top Gear, and it took me winning that for people to realize, like, oh, you don't suck in a car. Tanner beats you at everything, so I assumed you were terrible. And I was like, no, I'm actually a pretty good driver. But I thought, that's one of those funny times where I thought, you know what, I'm pretty good. Alfonso Ribeiro showed up, and I knew that he had a shifter cart and was really into racing. Alfonso hurt my feelings. He was so good behind the wheel. Like, it was hard to look at him the same way afterwards, because he could do it and just be ice cold at how good he was. And that's the thing, man. Balboni is he's the guy that would inspect and basically approve every single Lamborghini for the last 30 years, I think. And so much of where they gave him his own edition, and it was basically a rear-wheel drive only manual, and you could turn traction control off. It's a car you'd go and get sideways. So basically, unless you're Tanner Faust or Mr. Balboni, you probably have no business driving it. But man, that's so cool you got to do that. It's a ridiculous thing they make those cars.
I think, and I'm putting us in the same category, I think guys like us, it's hard, and again, correct me if I'm wrong at any time here, but it's hard for us to, because I get so, I have so much passion, so much emotion for it. So let's just use the shifter cart, for example. I'll look down, I'll see this crazy lap that I do, and I'll spend 3 laps celebrating that lap, that those following 3 laps will be horrible.
Absolutely, because you're like, oh man, I finally hit turn 3 right. It makes such a difference. And you're getting passed left and right because you're still celebrating the one heater that you put down. But that's the joy of it.
No, and I love it. I absolutely love that stuff. And by the way, for bang for your buck, if you guys don't know, do not think that is a go-kart. Like, that is a 2-stroke Honda 125 on a thing that weighs what? I don't even know. What does it weigh? Like 100 and something pounds.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And you are literally 3/4 of an inch off the ground, and it has everything racing has. Tire temperatures matter. Tire pressure matters. You can change the track width. You can change the camber, the caster. Like, there's so much adjustment in this thing. It's just like, it's a poor man's version of a F1 car. And bang for your buck, you can't beat it. Sorry.
It's so hardcore. It's awesome.
Sorry, I got a little excited. All right, dude, you're awesome.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hey, thanks for having me. Can we do this again?
I would love to, dude. I would love to. I just want to talk. I want to talk car shows with you. I want to do a car show with you, man. I think we should.
Let's do it. I'm in.
This guy, I can point on. If you can see this on the screen, I'm pointing at you right now. This guy right here is legit. he is exactly what I was hoping he would be. Like that sincerity. It was before we recorded, and even now, and in his direct messages, everything. Hell yeah, and also extremely generous to give us this much time, and to give me this much time, dude. I appreciate it, and I hope it was as fun for you as it was for me, because it was really fun.
Absolutely, it makes me want to go drive fast right now. But since no one's driving, all of the police in my town are out, and I'm gonna crawl home well below the speed.
And by the way, not to make this a shifter cart episode, but I have driven the shifter cart twice now. I'll break it out and I'll go up and down the street. I figured out how to, because like I said, it's so low, it'll actually bottom out on the street. But I figured out on the
crowd of the road, you got to be careful.
I figured out how to deal with it on this road, and I'll even helmet up, because I had a dream where I crashed into someone's front yard. But I'll helmet up and I just rip up and down the street. I don't give a shit. You have to. We need this.
It's the right thing to do. And you know what? There's some kid who saw you go by their house and they're like, that guy's off.
No, it is actually. I didn't want to be goofy, but it is a true story. There were these three kids that came running down a driveway, and they did the follow with the pan with the head. Like, what the fuck is that?
What is that guy? He's going so fast. Just put some streamers somewhere on the handlebars.
Dude, that's the thing.
Like
that face melting, like that's what we love about all these cars, and that's what like your Teslas and stuff give it to you now. Like I think of any car, like these Teslas with that torque, like you actually, it makes you a little dizzy almost.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's very similar to listening to this podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening.
Exactly.
You guys are awesome. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Art Mann podcast. Thank you, and high five, ass fox.
No, you were actually able to put your legs behind your head. Is that not true?
No.
So somebody else.
Absolutely not true. I never put my legs behind my head. If I had, I'd be alone in a suite right now. Would not be talking to you people.
I'll come here next week. I don't give a fuck.